This presentation is a C-level overview of security issues that affect SAP systems. If you're a senior decision maker, here are a dozen major issues that could be affecting your SAP security. Do you see some items that look familiar? How are you managing these? Do you believe that different tools and techniques are required to deal with these very diverse issues? Are you just hoping for the best in some cases? Let's go through them quickly, even if some are not your key issues, so you'll see that there's a common theme that connects them all. Password use is at the root of many security problems. We show you the picture of a cubicle with passwords written down for a good reason. You can see this in real life on many users' desks. Step one is to move to a more advanced system of authentication. Fingerprint scans are unique, secure, easy to implement. Why not take the leap? Fingerprint scans are also completely private because images of fingerprints are never used, just the minutiae measured from the fingerprints, which are then securely encrypted and transmitted to SAP. The most important defense against fraudulent transactions is to force users to re-authenticate frequently. It doesn't matter that you log on at the beginning of the day. Whenever you request a large wire transfer, a check, or a budget change, it's reasonable that the SAP system would re-verify who is asking for the transaction. If you're using fingerprint scans for this verification, it becomes virtually impossible to impersonate another user. This dramatically reduces the risk of fraud, or at least limits it to much smaller amounts. And you decide what the threshold value is, user by user. Access to employee health records, according to HIPAA, must be tightly controlled to avoid unauthorized access and potential lawsuits. Using fingerprint scans to control access is the greatest form of control you can put in place. You make sure that only authorized individuals can see the health data stored under Infotype 167 in SAP. The key to Sarbanes-Oxley Section 404 compliance is to be able to demonstrate written procedures and to offer a definite trail of who had access to financial information. In this example, by requiring dual confirmation of viewing high-level corporate financials, it's impossible for one individual alone to have seen the data. This means plausible deniability for executives. And even with single confirmation, the audit trail is indisputable. All activities are logged in detail to prove compliance. It's very common that former employees or administrators still have access to an SAP system after they leave. The password system alone makes this very difficult to control. To eliminate access by anyone who is not currently employed by you, a global switch lets an SAP function be 100% locked down, after which selected users are whitelisted or added back by enrollment. The ghost workers are instantly eliminated. If they try to log in, they will be asked for a fingerprint scan and won't be able to authenticate. Hacking is almost inevitable, but you can limit the damage that might be done if someone does gain access. Data access has to be compartmentalized so that if an intruder does get past the system perimeter, it doesn't mean they can do any real damage. In this example, a hacker who got past the perimeter is simply exporting out the entire customer database. This is a classic opportunity for a security checkpoint. Access points like this should be restricted as much as possible and limited to users who have passed biometric authentication. Swiping a sensor like the one shown only takes a couple of seconds, but it makes all the difference in the world in securing your data. Industrial espionage and theft of intellectual property is on the rise. Biometric security can be used to compartmentalize information. In this example, information has been made invisible so that fields in the screen simply remain blank for an unauthorized user, even though a valid SAP password was supplied. Appropriate security checkpoints need to be established to challenge and re-authenticate anyone working with sensitive data. Smart cards can be a valid addition to your security program, although if they don't contain any biometric information, they won't add much value. If a user works in a high volume processing area where no interruptions are tolerated, smart cards can be a convenient solution. As long as the card stays in the reader, the user won't even know if a biometric checkpoint was just passed. When leaving the workstation, the card has to be removed and carried with the employee. Smart cards also have the advantage that they could be used for physical access to your building and doors. Buddy punching increases labor costs in many organizations where employees have to clock in and out. The potential for fraud is huge if a system does not verify the identity of the user punching in. Biometric identity management makes buddy punching impossible. You can combine this with the SAP Employee Self-Service module. In this example, The scanner has been embedded in an ESS kiosk, which also offers basic HR functions. When the employee clocks in, no password needs to be remembered, and no card has to be presented. Segregation of duties is difficult to enforce unless you use biometric authentication. How else would you know if the accounts receivable employee is logging in using the accounts payable employee's password? Once you've defined the roles to avoid SOD conflicts, setting up these security profiles lets you strictly enforce the rules. A fingerprint scan can't be faked or guessed. Identity management goes hand in hand with robust audit trails. When the BioLock system is first installed, the auditing function is set up to require dual biometric verification so that two authorized users would have to collaborate to tamper with the audit trail. This example shows a suspicious pattern of behavior by a user called Smith, who keeps pretending to be Jones, first attempting to log into SAP and then trying to create a purchase order. Smith probably doesn't even realize that these failed attempts are being tracked. Mobile access to SAP is increasing very quickly. Many laptops are now available with fingerprint scanners. Why not make use of these to control SAP functions? Due to strong demand for iPads by executives and mobile users, an iPad application is in development. Users will be able to authenticate biometrically before accessing SAP via the web portal. You'll be able to use an iPad to perform all SAP functions as if you were in your office with the same robust biometric verification. ITAR rules only affect companies that export goods or designs with military applications. Working on such products is strictly limited to U.S. citizens, but there are many obvious ways an employee might try to circumvent ITAR rules, starting with modifying their nationality status, as in the example. With passwords, this would be difficult to control, but biometric verification allows easy control of such activities. If a user is not specifically whitelisted or given access to functions, they just can't execute them. Same would apply to changing the export restriction flag on a certain product or any other attempt to circumvent ITAR rules. So here we are back at the executive worry list. So how did you do? Some of the items may not have pertained to your situation, but you saw how most of the problems were created by relying only on passwords and not adding identity management functionality within SAP. In all cases, this was alleviated by introducing fingerprint scanning. Combining this with BioLock software, which is integrated seamlessly with your SAP system, you create a much more secure environment. Solving the problems on our C-level worry list can't be done if you continue to use only passwords. Passwords are technology from the 1960s and are fundamentally flawed because they're based on what you know. Once you decide to move beyond passwords to biometric verification, which is based on who you are, your SAP security will take a quantum leap forward. To summarize, whichever issues you found on our worry list that are challenging you right now, you can dramatically improve them by implementing fingerprint scanning within your SAP system. All your data, intellectual property, records, and funds can be compartmentalized and secured for maximum protection. Don't you owe it to yourself and your stakeholders to protect your assets in the best way possible? Find out how you too can implement bulletproof SAP security. Call 1-877-BioLock or send an email to info@biolock.us. Have a great day.